Before we get into today's episode, we want to thank the sponsor of this episode, Tamron Americas. And right now you can enjoy savings of up to $200 US and 300 Canadian dollars on specifically chosen Tamron lenses designed to fit your Sony E, Nikon Z, and Fujifilm X mirrorless cameras. You can experience the outstanding image quality and precise autofocus tracking of Tamron's lightweight and compact lenses. So don't miss out. This offer is valid only until January 21st. You can seize this opportunity by heading to your nearest Tamron retailer before that date, and you can get your Tamron lens today. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Nice. All right, we're here. We managed we got all our cables and our wires and everything in the line. Tony, thanks for sitting through that setup. Sometimes it goes easy. Sometimes it's a little bit more complicated, but you're here now and it's a pleasure to have you here, man. It was great meeting you in Sedona and just
thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for your time. And we're going to talk street today, or if you can even call it that.
Yeah, what is street photography, right?
Let's start there, man. What's street photography?
And, it's a great question. It kind of, for me, I can speak for myself. My main context for grabbing photos is on the street or from the street. So that's kind of how I think about street photography. I think there's like a narrow sense of like when we're talking about street photography and, we're talking about capturing, the, people, events and things that are just happening, real time, usually like in that urban context. I do that as well. I don't generally post most of that to my social media, but I actually have a lot of that. And it's kind of the context where I thrive the most because it feels kind of like the urban wilderness. You get out there, you're meeting people, you're seeing things. And then that's where I find a lot of, detail shots. I shoot portraits in that context. But street for me is more about a context and an approach to photography that is maybe contra like studio portraits or event or wedding based photography. So street is just the context which I find inspiration and develop art.
Right. And so you're saying it's about the context. Can you give us some context on on how you're finding that context when you're out in the field?
Yeah. So I think, at least for me, I'm thinking about, I could speak from the vantage point of like what inspires me. So, I am someone call me an extrovert. I would just say I'm an introvert that likes to talk a lot and an introvert that doesn't mind like connecting with a lot of people. Right. So, if you look over like on my Instagram, you'll see like a lot of like detail oriented type of photography. And, one of the ways that I find inspiration is by just going out, taking a walk. And, the more that there is buzzing around me, the more I'm inspired to kind of look. So, if there are just cars zooming by, people, activities, things going on, that just inspires me to take a look for the things that are maybe not as noticeable or the things that you actually have to work hard to pay attention to. So a lot of times, like I just went out last night with a group of 5 or 6 photographers here in Nashville. We went downtown and, there's like the stuff that you would normally take, pictures of. All right, people walking down Broadway in Nashville. The big deal is, you walk down Broadway, everybody's got cowboy boots and hats and, it's just a fun party and it's cool. It's a cool vibe. But I'm also looking for the random thing like the cup that got left, on a concrete block somewhere or, the key that's dangling off of a door or a chain that's hanging off of, a post. So, I'm thinking about what makes the scene interesting and what are the things that are going to be overlooked. And then I like to capture those things.
So you're noticing the unnoticeable, essentially.
Yeah.
How do you make something profound and artistic when it's just a simple everyday item? I mean, what's the key to making
that's
something that most people overlook really creative and impactful?
Dude, that's a great question, man. That's a real great question. I think I start from the vantage point of saying that the thing that I'm looking at is actually a lot more amazing than we give it credit for. So I think my creative process, my thought process begins there. And so I look at something and I don't really see something that's super ordinary. I see something that's actually pretty cool, that if we just got the right angle on it, then we can draw something out. So like I tend to look for the angle that most accentuates the bigness of a thing. I know maybe it's a philosophical concept for me. I feel like I'm always the underdog. I'm the little guy that's, easy to look over, maybe, the story of my life. And I think a lot of people feel that way as well. Like, they're doing something that's significant, but, maybe you're just easy to look over. Well, what I'm trying to do with photography, with a lot of the, finding the extraordinary and the ordinary type of thing, I'm looking for the way to best find the angle to put an ordinary object that everybody can resonate with and relate to. And I want to try to find a vantage point that makes it look massive in light of where it's at. So like, for instance, if I see like a rope that's dangling, I'm going to try to find, the kind of backstop that gives me the contrast pop that I'm looking for. And then suddenly now a rope that's just dangling looks like this amazing, piece of art, or like something that's, sitting on the floor like a bottle cap, something like that. I'm looking at how can I get an angle that accentuates the dents, the character, the flaws even of an item, so that the flaws become the thing that people look at and say, hey, and that's actually kind of, I know that, I recognize what that is, I resonate with that, but it's not something I ever would have thought to stop and look at. So really, all I'm trying to do is just hyper focus on the things that we already know are there, but we just take for granted. And so sometimes I'm using texture, sometimes I'm using lighting, sometimes I'm using, depth of field. A lot of times I'm using depth of field, or like perspective, get down on the floor with it, and like imagine you're an ant and you're looking at this item. One of the guys that I shoot with, he's like, I don't know, he might be like 7 feet tall. I think he might be 6'9", 6'10" or something.
Wow.
And his normal way of shooting, like he's walking around crowds and holding his camera, just holding it to his eye. Like he's naturally getting this vantage point that nobody else gets, because he's so tall. And it's like, man, like that's helpful to think about, just the perspective. What happens if you get really, really low? You can take shots that are just crazy perspectives. And a lot of people are just not willing to like get that uncomfortable, especially like in a street scenario. The streets are dirty, they're filthy, and like, but getting down low and getting on the ground and like taking low shots of like boots, or, the spurs on the boot, or random stuff on the floor. Like you don't really think about it, but you resonate with the picture because you know what that is. And there's almost a sense of like it's attainable. Like I hope I'm not like creating art that people feel like they can't do. It's like they're looking at it, it's like, maybe I can do that too. Like maybe if I paid attention to that bottle cap and just got on the ground, I could take that shot too. So I don't think I'm doing something like phenomenal in that, no other photographer can do it. And I think that's what people resonate with.
Very interesting. And I have so many questions based on what you've just said. I feel like I'm going to ask one that Aaron wants to ask, and I want to see, let's rewind. It sort of sounds like you're very inclined to shoot the overlooked. Is that fair to say?
No doubt.
And you, if you're comfortable getting into maybe an example or two, you said the words, story of my life. We like to get a little raw, vulnerable on the show. What do you mean by that? It seems like almost like,
no doubt.
that it's your mission to.
Tony, and for the record, I was going to ask that exact question because I'm the counselor of the group.
I knew he was going to ask that. I literally thought about it in my head, and I said, Aaron's going to ask this exact question.
Great minds thinking alike.
Yeah. And I got to be honest, in the same exact way, Seth. Like, we don't want to
hang around you too much every week.
Willing to share. It was like spot on. And you know what? I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the answer.
Yeah, no, it's great. Dude, I love that. So, I grew up in as a no big deal kid in a family where I experienced a lot of, just the turmoils of like domestic abuse in my home. And, as a kid growing up in a context like that, you always felt your smallness, like you're powerless. You couldn't change things that were happening. When I was in my teens, life got real rough. Was displaced, didn't have a place to live, when I was in my 15, 16, right around that age. And again, you felt the vulnerability of being overlooked. It wasn't until I found, and it really, faith plays a huge piece in my life and my story. But I found people that wanted to love me, people that wanted to care for me. And that has been a piece of my story, a piece of my life. And I've just appreciated people who wanted to not overlook the little guy, people who wanted to not overlook the person who didn't seem like a big deal. Part of that drove me to about like 10 years of doing like inner city church planting. And like I pastored for 10 years in a real rough environment. And that for me, I just wanted to look out for people that people would just overlook. And so that's a huge piece of my story of, just not wanting to take anybody for granted, not wanting to look over things that seem to be little or of no consequence, because some people might have thought that would have been me, And so, yeah, that's part of even why I resonate a lot with street photography, because, there are a lot of scenarios, a lot of times where just taking a camera with you out on the street makes people want to talk and share stories. And they feel like, man, somebody actually wants to spend some time, hear my story, take my picture, things like that. Those engagements that happen when I'm out on the street, I'm getting the shots that kind of tell the story, but I'm also meeting some people as well. So it's a cool way to kind of take, the world of that I've come from and just take the art of noticing things into my photography. So yeah, that's kind of the backstory, and I appreciate y'all asking me about that. It's dope.
Yeah, that's straight up symbolic and beautiful. And when you first said you're in Nashville, and then I'm looking at your Instagram page, it's like you wouldn't know you're in Nashville, unless I maybe dug a little bit deeper. But and it's kind of like it's amazing. It's like living in Yosemite and being a photographer of the grasses and the plants and the small rocks and the small things. Like no one would know what it is, but your story to tie that all together of like, it's just very symbolic of I want to notice the little things. Like I'm repeating what's happening, but it's just a very cool take on seeing the world.
No doubt, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I think that taking that kind of concept into, all of my art has been the thing that at least has helped me clarify like the main thing that I'm doing, when it comes to like when I'm finding a subject. Like there are a few shots that I have like where, the seed itself is epic. It's amazing. Like what photographer doesn't want to take a picture of something cool and epic? I do that as well. But I love just taking note of things that are like not so cool. So for instance, a couple months ago, actually now this was like 3 weeks ago, I hit up this scrap yard. Like it was just a huge scrap yard out here in Nashville. I called him up and I was like, hey, do you mind if a photographer just comes out to your lot and just takes pictures? And the guy was totally cool with it. He was like, yeah, man, come on out here, spend as much time as you want.
Awesome.
And that was great. I mean, it was like literal, like Picks by Shep content. And I'm still processing through all of that stuff. But yeah, I just walked around like busted, beat up cars and just found art and beauty out of things that were, you know, at one level, maybe it's somebody's trash, you know, somebody else's treasure, you know. So I love finding that through line of, you know, my art.
And being out east and into wildlife photography and nature photography, there's been times, and I've heard this comment many times in the years I've been on here, where it's well, you guys out west have all those animals, and you guys out west have all the huge mountains and the beautiful scenes, and what are we supposed to do out here? Or where do I begin with photography? We don't have the epic scenes that everyone else is going to see, and I think you've proven that you don't need it. You essentially,
that's right.
If you go in your backyard and spend days,
that's right.
months looking at different plants and structures and water droplets and dust and spider webs, and find the craft of photography and practice that art. And that
right
is
on, I think you're
thing.
Yeah, you're saying something that resonates with a lot of photographers, a lot of people that interact with me online and that hit me up are other photographers that found that, you know, they're in a city or a town that's not so picturesque, and they found inspiration to like photograph things that are super ordinary, and it gave a category and maybe even just kind of like celebrated something that's like, you know, seemingly ordinary, but it's kind of like an explosion of opportunities now, because it's like, wow, like I could go, just like you said, in my backyard or in my house, you know, or in my town that seems kind of boring, but, you know, maybe there's a lot more going on in this boring town that I could actually take note of. And there's a way to capture beautifully what's easily overlooked. So a lot of photographers that I talk to, you know, they're not in the big cool cities. I love the big cool cities. You know, I love shooting stuff that lets you know I'm in Nashville. I'll go out to New York City and shoot stuff. That's great. But it's funny because, you know, if I go to New York, I'm going to shoot the kind of stuff that you won't know if I shot that in New York or if I shot it in Cleveland or Wichita or, you know, Houston or, you know, Pulaski, Tennessee. And I love that because it's, you know, it is kind of like it gives, I wouldn't say permission, but it gives inspiration to people that are saying, and if I'm not in a cool city, can I really be, you know, the kind of photographer that enjoys art? Do I have to travel? Traveling is cool because it inspires you in different ways. But the reality is, you know, when I went to New York last month, I'm still looking for like random, you know, chains dangling from fences. Like I had to bring a variety of lenses to make sure I take pictures of stuff you know, I'm in New York City, guys, you know, but it's like, I'm still looking for a random screw, you know, and I'm like, oh, you know, I could have did this in West Nashville too. So
yeah, the local Home Depot.
Yeah, I could have went to the Home Depot, man, and like, Home Depot's a whole thing. I thought about doing a whole picks by ship like deal at Home Depot. I may do this, like, just go to Home Depot and like see if they would be cool with me being in there for a couple hours. Just picks by ship the thing,
and
like just find random stuff.
The symmetry in there, and like the, you know, the containers, the paint chips, like everything. You could get some good stuff.
Yeah, paint chips, all that. Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm. You could do an album per aisle.
I want to see that.
Man, that's a whole concept right there. Like, and we don't even have to stop at Home Depot. We can. What store was I in the other day? I was thinking about it. It was some store. I don't know. It was Costco. It was Costco. I was in the Costco and I was like, man, like the way the butter looks, like that corner of the butter, like, man, that's a shot. And I'm like walking around. I'm like, ooh, there's this like random plastic bag sticking out the side. Like they tied it on this little shelf. I'm like, man, that would be awesome because you can get the light, go at a 45-degree angle. And I'm just like, man, what's wrong with me? And I'm like, hey, this is exactly what photography is. You know, going to Costco and like imagining 1,000 different photos you can get. So,
oh man, I'm over here laughing, and it's your energy is infectious, and I'm not laughing because it's silly, but man, you just sound like someone who You enjoy the experience of things existing, and you just enjoy the experience of life, it seems.
Yeah, man, that's right on. That's exactly it, man. Like, I'm trying to enjoy it, man. Like, photography for me is a way for me to tap into that. You know, it's a way for me to just enjoy the environment that I'm in. And yeah, I mean, I can't look at any space that I'm in without thinking about like all the crazy ways that, you know, the room or the space that you're in, you know, can actually yield a lot of really cool perspectives. And it also helps me think about people that way as well. You know, so like when I do like more classic street photography stuff, like where I'm actually taking pictures of people, I see people the same way, you know, not like just like their objects blocking light, creating shadows and things, but like, man, people are complex, cool mixes of a lot of different experiences and, you know, just a lot of things that are interesting. And, you know, photography is one way to tap into that and to tell that story. So, but yeah, man, I love photography. It's a fun way to connect with people, and it's a fun way to notice your environment and to enjoy it even more.
Now, you mentioned you brought a bunch of lenses to New York City. What are your usual go-tos, focal lengths, brands?
Ooh, yeah,
I realize you're a Tamron ambassador. And Tamron sponsoring the show, full disclaimer. Yeah. But before you say that, I just want to put that out there. But what are you bringing?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, man. I love the whole range of Tamron lenses. My favorite, by far, my favorite Tamron lens is the 35 to 150.
Everyone
F2
says that
on 35 in, and man, that thing is butter. Love it. It's my favorite. If I had to pick one lens, every other lens had to be like thrown out of a plane window. The other one plane that had the fuselage thing pop off and stuff got, okay, if every lens had to get sucked out the window thing, like the one lens that I would want to hold on to is that 35 to 150. Okay. So that's number one for me. The number two is actually the 28 through 75. For what I do, like in a street context, it's the most versatile. It's a f2 2.8, so it's a fast lens. You can use it in a nighttime scenario, and I do a lot of shooting at night as well. When I do more like classic street photography, man, that focal range, like from 28, that's wide enough to get, you know, like 30. I can shoot. I'm fine at 35. Like, you know, if I had to pick a particular focal length and it had to be one, it'd probably be 35. I think 35 millimeter just looks cool. It's pretty versatile. You can get wide enough scenes. You can also get a little bit close. But 28 just gives you just a little bit more space. A little bit squeezes out a little more larger than lifeness out of the shot. And, you know, 75 at f2.8 looks really good. Like when you're doing like portraits or just trying to create that bokeh background. So those are my top two favorite lenses from Tamron. But then I can't even stop there because, man, I love that 50 to 400 for certain scenarios.
Right.
Like that 50
I have that
to 400. I use that in street. Yeah, that thing is crazy for street. So, oh my goodness, man, I did a whole round in Manhattan with that one recently. And I think I shot the Veterans Day Parade. And man, what I could get out of that, like, I don't know, man. That on any given day, I would say that's my favorite lens.
Well, it's good that you love those lenses. Everyone that I talked to at the summit said that 35 to 150 is a beast. So I need to get my hands on one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That was, I first got my hands on that 35 to 150. I want to say it was about it was like summer of 22. Summer of 22. And
nice.
the first city that I actually shot with it was actually Nashville. And I was living in Virginia at the time when I first started talking to Tamron, and then moved to Nashville. I've lived here. This is my second time living in Nashville, but moved to Nashville, and it was cool, like kind of taking it downtown. And I had a couple buddies with me. They all, like, one was on a Fuji system, one was on a Canon system. they're all trying out different lenses. And I was like, all right, let me try this 35 to 150. And it was just blowing my mind. And it just has not let me down since then. So 35 to 150, baby.
Nice. Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah, it's really cool, the focal lengths that Tamron has. I mean, it's so unique and interesting and weird in a good way.
Right.
But it does. I think it probably stirs up some creativity too. Like,
Agreed.
What
yeah, it is. It is kind of unique.
Isn't the traditional? Yeah, it's unique for sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you this: why black and white? All your photos on your page are black and white. Why? What's the reason? Does it help with that artistic expression?
I want to answer for him. Can I answer for him?
Let's see the answer. We're going to compare notes.
You can, and then Tony can tell you if you're right.
Yeah. I want to take a stab at it based on what I know.
Okay.
All right. So from the start, he's looking for the overlooked, the small things, the little things. Color is a distraction. Color can be the giant mountain scene in the beautiful frame. Color can just get in the way of those exact details, the contrast between shadow and light. And I think on the lowest level, or the most basic level, I should say, which can be the most beautiful, he's looking to show these things without any distraction and just from the most substantial aspect, just what it is. That's my answer. That's my poetic answer for Tony.
That's great, man. Next question. Next question, man. Great. Let's keep this going.
He goes. No, I don't know how to change that setting on my camera. That's why I
actually, the honest truth is, that's the way to say. I was shooting on a monochrome camera. There's a lot. I can't remember exactly the decisive point that I said, man, black and white is for me. Like, because, I shoot in color. I have some color material. It's not bad. Like, I like that. But I gravitate towards black and white for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. Like, I'm a real, of the essence type of guy. And so, there's something about black and white photography that gets you to the essence of the thing. It's the framing, it's the composition, it's texture, it's the emotion, it's the way that you can really cut to the chase and really get your viewers to hyper focus. It's kind of like what dodge and burn as a tool is. I know we're not getting into tech talk, but when you dodge and burn, you're helping people see something or focus on something in the frame. Black and white photography is another way to say, let me help you see what it is that I see. There's a way in which I kind of see the world in black and white. And, I'm imagining what black and white would really make the texture of that pop out. And the texture is what I want us to notice. We're going to immediately look at it and say, yeah, that is what tree bark looks like, or that is what a screw looks like. It's totally what a screw looks like. But man, now I'm paying attention to it because all the distractions have been removed. And now I see the essence of the thing. And so you can appreciate it more. So it is an artistic choice for me to help kind of, amplify, the goal that I have when I'm taking photos, which is to help people see the essence of the scene. So even when it's people or subjects or street activity, something about black and white just kind of removes some of the, not only the distraction of color, but some of the, sometimes it's even the distraction of time or the place. It can almost make it feel like it just exists in the scene itself exists, and it's not so much so what city it's in or not in, even though sometimes I like highlighting that. It just almost feels like it's in this world of collective experience that doesn't actually have to be New York or LA or Chicago or Miami or whatever. It's just, it's an experience that we can more resonate with. And so, I find that it has a way of drawing us into the commonality and what we all resonate with, as opposed to like, what makes it pop so differently than maybe other things. And so, yeah, all of those threads come together in black and white. I just personally like the way black and white looks. I like seeing things in black and white. I like editing black and white. I like seeing a big black and white photo hanging on a wall. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, I love black and white. It's just classic. It's, it makes you think. And so I love it.
You can't put a colored photo in every room of your house, sometimes it just doesn't work, but a black and white will fit just about anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. It's flexibility.
I'm with you. And I really enjoy, black and white photography, and some of my favorite artists do that. And usually if I go to a place, I'll do a series for myself of like, I want to do this in black and white and see what it's all about. And a couple things I've noticed in my limited time of doing it is, number one, you see very quickly once you flip over to the black and white workspace, do you have a good photo or not? Right?
Yes.
Very quickly it can get super busy. And you can be like, without color distinguishing what I'm looking at, I just have a mess here, versus a very clear interpretation of what I was trying to do. That's number one thing. And the other thought I always have is like, no matter how good a song is with the full band, if the song can't be played with just an acoustic guitar and the melody, then you've got nothing. Like,
that's a great parallel. I never thought of that. That's great. Yeah.
Every good song should be pretty much be able to be stripped down and hear the person singing and maybe one instrument, and it should still hit hard, right?
Like that's a great analogy.
That's the thought I always have, is like, oh, if this photo is good in black and white, I got a good thing here.
That's good. Yeah, I know. There's a photographer I know out here in Nashville, and he actually shoots he doesn't shoot black and white primarily. Mainly shoots color, but he shoots with a black and white profile on his camera for that reason, because he's looking to frame it and to capture something that stands, that's strong in black and white. And then when it's in color, his photography is amazing. I think he's one of the photographers out here. He's a guy named Hunter Hart, and great photographer. And I really admire his eye. But yeah, that's how he shoots. He shoots the black and white profile so that he's paying attention to light. He's seeing the light. He's thinking about the placement of the subject or subjects in relation to the light. He's thinking about the composition. And then when he flips it to color, the color just helps. It's just helping to tell the story of a great photo. And it's not like competing, but it just takes a great picture and makes it better. So
it's very cool. Seth, our good friend Britt Bossy, who's been on the show, she has very colorful and nicely saturated photos, but I just found out she edits completely in black and white at first.
I've tried that before too. My thought is that if it looks good in black and white, when I pop the color on, it's going to be great. And I mean, that's just summarizing everything we just said. But I've tried that personally. I don't usually do it, but the odd time I'll flip over and see how it looks.
Mm-hmm.
You guys there?
Yep. I'm
here. Seth, did we lose you?
No, you just had an awkward pause. Nobody wanted to say anything to me.
That's weird. My audio just got scratchy randomly. I don't know why.
We're having a time here, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, we're getting
gems.
It's okay. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Tony.
Yeah.
Is there money to be made in street photography? Yes or no?
Man, I know some people who do make money, like here in Nashville. Like this is probably the answer to that question is probably very specific to like the kind of city you're in. I know guys that go out. I see them all the time. Friends with them. I'll be out taking shots. Maybe have a couple of photographers with me. But then there are some guys out here like in downtown Nashville that are out there like taking shots of people like, tourists that are having a great time out on Broadway. They're buying pictures like on the street, like, got a iPad processing the photo right there on the spot, selling it. So I know some guys that actually make money like that. And, they make a decent amount of money. Wow. That's not their only income stream. I'm sure there's somebody out there making money on that. From just a pure business strategy vantage point, I don't see street photography necessarily making money directly like that. I would see basically street photography could make you money indirectly if your street photography helps build the kind of platform or connections that then get you into other things. So I'm not a full-time photographer. It's not because I don't want to be, it's just because I like my job. And photography is a fun outlet for me. Something that I love doing. Mm-hmm. I do make money off of it. It's just not my full-time career. But I mean, there are a lot of ways into it. The other night I was doing some street photography. I saw a lady who had a really nice hat on, and Nashville is full of hats and hat companies, and people move from Texas to go start up hat companies in Nashville. It's a pretty big thing. So she had a great hat on. And so I walked up to her and I said, hey, you've got a great hat. I'm a local photographer. Do you mind if I take a picture of you? And so she was like, cool, for sure. So I took a picture of her hat, and then she's like, hey, I have a friend who just started a hat business right here in downtown Nashville, and let me connect you. So it's the opportunities are there, but it's not directly in street photography. I don't know anybody who does pure street photography and they just make money off of street photography. If I were to move into more of a monetizing direction, I would just take what I'm doing with street, the people that I'm meeting in street photography, and continue to build the brand, the Pics by Ship brand online, and then leverage the fact that my Instagram is just it's just proof of concept. Basically, hey, this guy can shoot. This guy can get out there and make something look pretty decent. So, maybe you can hire him for a gig. So I think my long answer would be no, but maybe there's somebody out there doing it like that. I don't think street photography just lends itself well to a direct, money making type of scenario. It's not as profitable in that sense.
Tony, when we were at the Tamron Summit, you mentioned you were having great success with Threads, Instagram Threads, something we haven't talked much about. How's your experience been with that platform?
Yeah, Threads to me is dope because it's going great. I think I'm coming up on, at the time of us recording this, right around 10,000 followers on that platform. And I've really just been using it more recently, the last couple of months. To me, at least, it's kind of, they got the whole how to train the dragon. Well, if you train your algorithm, this thing is phenomenal. I jumped on the Threads because I wanted a platform that was connected to Instagram. It's basically, it's everything I wanted. Something connected to Instagram, but that gave me more freedom to talk about things. And not because I want some big statement or make some big statement or have a lot of things to say on social media. I personally am not a huge fan of being too chatty on social media. I'd rather just talk to you. But Threads makes it to where I can discover and talk with other photographers. So, that's been phenomenal for me. What I love doing is using the new hashtags. I'll just tag photographers of Threads, and I'll just ask hey, show me a picture that you taken. It's of something broken, or show me a picture of something in black and white, or show me a picture of something, fill in the blank. And just seeing dozens and dozens and dozens of photographers pop out of nowhere and just engage with that. I love that, man. I love that kind of stuff. So that, for me, Threads is less about me as a photographer and more about you as a photographer. So my Instagram, obviously, it's my Instagram. I'm using it to share my stuff, but Threads is more about you. It's more about discovery. It's more about others getting a chance to kind of jump into the dialogue and share some of their work. So I use like Threads is kind of like, if IG is my like private entrance into my house through my garage, the Threads, if that's IG, the Threads is kind of like the front porch where I just want everybody to hang out. And, I want to discover new photographers. I want other photographers to discover other photographers. And then maybe that could just be a magnet for people that are looking for photographers. Like you can go to Picks by Shep on Threads and find like hundreds of photographers. And, that's what I want Threads to be. And also Threads has the unique capacity of being able to dialogue with local folks. I really am a huge fan of like just connecting with people around me. Like I want to know people in Nashville. I connect with a lot of people in Nashville, whether they are restaurants, managers of bars, musicians, creatives, like, everybody in Nashville. Like I want to connect with my local environment. I think there's something important about that. I think, we can only be in one place at one time. Virtually, we can be anywhere, but we can only be in one place at one time. And like, making sure that you're thinking about your own kind of backyard, I think is important. And so Threads enables me to be able to connect with some of the local people while having a little bit more of a conversation. IG is not for conversation, which is partly why I like it a lot, but Threads is the extension of that. So I've been having great success with it and a lot of fun with it. And I think it's going to continue to grow. It's a whole different cross section of people I'm finding. So like there is some crossover, some people are on my IG, they're on my Threads, but there are a lot of people on Threads that are they're just larger slice of the pie, I'd say. Like it's like also people that aren't even into photography, but just know me as a person, and they'll jump on Threads, so that's a cool context. I'm trying to figure out what that'll look like a year from now, but for right now it's booming on my end. I'm enjoying it. Getting to like, 10K within just a couple of months of really using it has been pretty cool. But I think it mainly works because it's not about me. It's like, it's about you, the photographer out there. And I want to learn who's out there and support other people that are working.
So Tony, a last question that we like to ask our guests is in simple form. If you could tell your past self, your beginning photographer self, right before they started, some piece of advice, some tip, some knowledge, what would you tell yourself as you're starting off as a beginning photographer?
Yeah, I think what I would say is, have fun, take the shot. The whole, paralysis by analysis, that you're just always trying to get everything just perfect. Could just stifle the fun out of it. And I would want to tell my younger self, like, yeah, just enjoy the process and know that there's always more headroom to grow. But just enjoy the process. You're never going to get good at something if the process is frustrating. So just enjoy it. I think another thing I would tell myself is don't overestimate the banger and don't underestimate consistency. I think that's always like, one of those pitfalls. Like you could just chase the banger and just overestimate it. Like, man, this banger is going to like do everything. And it doesn't. Versus just be consistent. And consistency is where you hit a stride. Consistency is where you find your place. It's where, you begin to enjoy the process. And then the last bit I would just say is enjoy the process more than the results. The process, if the process becomes like fun and art to you, then the end results, whatever, if you get a lot of followers, a lot of people resonate with your work, cool. I mean, that's just like, that's icing on the cake. But if you don't enjoy the process, you know, and you don't get the kind of responses you want, then man, like, yeah, what are you doing it for? So I would just say, enjoy the process, make the process a part of what you enjoy. And then, and if the art turns into something that a lot of people resonate with, then man, that's just even better. It's the icing on the cake. So yeah, that's what I would tell my younger self.
That's awesome. Enjoy the process. That's something we say a lot on this show. Tony, it's nice meeting you. Thank you for being on the show. That was some awesome stuff.
So that came in like computer code. I'm going to pretend you said something really dope and really awesome. Like, man, thanks for jumping on, da-da-da-da. So I'm going to say, man, guys, thanks for having me on, man. Like, this is great. Great opportunity. You guys are
Tony.
awesome.
Until next time.